It's 1974, and American car culture is at full throttle, V8 engines thunder down suburban streets. Teenagers race muscle-bound beasts like they're chasing immortality. And Detroit automakers flood the market with machines built for speed, but haunted by fatal flaws. And no one pushed that further than H.B. Halicki.
All units stand by, 1 Baker 11 in pursuit, a 73 Ford Mustang.
Gone in 60 Seconds begins with a mission as absurd as it is relentless. Steal 48 cars in just 5 days. Mindry and Pace, who runs what barely passes for an auto shop by daylight, hides a career in theft behind an insurance investigator guise. The film's centerpiece is an uninterrupted 40-minute chase, a collision ballet across public Los Angeles streets where permission was never part of the script. H.B. Halicki didn't hire stunt doubles for most sequences. He drove those cars himself and filmed the carnage for real. One sequence shows the Mustang, known as Eleanor, slicing through city infrastructure at insane speed, knocking Halicki unconscious when it strikes a telephone pole. He wakes up just long enough to ask whether the camera caught it. The finale screens Eleanor hurtling 128 feet through the air, and Halicki collapsing into permanent spinal damage, dashed vertebrae, becoming a lifelong souvenir from the stunt. He bought most of the crash cars at public auctions for a few $100s each, and treated each wreck like a reusable set piece. Even a genuine fire truck responding to an actual emergency wound up in the mayhem, unwittingly captured in a shot that feels more documentary than fiction. What plays as narrative is really archive of cinematic recklessness, and that real-world danger is the film's central character.
This race is my last chance to get my career back together.
Oh, face facts, Coy. Your racing career ended when that girl died.
Cannonball tells the story of Coy Buckman, a washed-up race car driver who enters a dangerous, illegal coast-to-coast race hoping to revive his career. Recently released from prison for a fatal drunk driving accident, he's still on probation and barely holding his life together. Coy forces his parole officer Linda to join him on the journey, while rival drivers bring chaos and violence to the highway. What unfolds isn't just a race, but a long, violent collapse of any sense of rules, loyalty, or safety. During filming, the chaos on screen mirrored what was happening behind the camera. The stunt work was pushed to extremes, multiple high-speed crashes were staged with little margin for error, often using real vehicles on open roads. A climactic multi-car pileup involving fiery wrecks and twisted metal was so intense that David Carradine tried to convince the director to cut it for being too grim. Paul Bartel refused, arguing the destruction captured the real stakes of outlaw racing. Mary Warrenoff had to be towed by a rope during her scenes because she couldn't drive. At times, filming went on without proper permits, leading to moments where cast and crew nearly got arrested mid-shoot.
I hope he's a good sailor.
Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry starts with a robbery and turns into a high-speed cat-and-mouse chase across rural California. Larry Rader and his mechanic Deke pull off a supermarket heist to bankroll their NASCAR dreams, only to find themselves stuck with Mary, a loud, impulsive one-night stand who won't take no for an answer. As they dodge police helicopters and roadblocks in a souped-up Dodge Charger, it's clear this isn't about money anymore, it's about speed, ego, and not getting caught. But the real story is what happened during filming. Peter Fonda and Adam Roark refused stunt doubles and drove the cars themselves, often skimming trees and fences during tight, dangerous maneuvers. Fonda nearly rolled the Charger during one botched turn, but stayed in character to finish the shot. Vic Morrow, playing the obsessed sheriff, demanded a $1 million paycheck and treated the crew like a nuisance, refusing to rehearse with other actors. The set was tense, especially when filming chase scenes with real traffic nearby. Producers wanted a big Hollywood-style crash at the end, but the director insisted on something fast and jarring, cutting everything off in a single, brutal second. Nobody speaks, there's no final word, just silence, smoke, and a lot of stunned faces walking out of theaters.
Who's your connection, Willie? What's his name?
What?
Answer him! No, man, no!
The French Connection follows two New York cops chasing heroin from the back streets of Brooklyn to the docks of Marseille. But the most unforgettable thing about the film isn't the plot. It's the chase. A 5-minute slab of pure adrenaline that director William Friedkin shot illegally on live city streets with no permits, no lockdown traffic, and no safety net except the reflexes of stunt driver Bill Hickman. He drove a Pontiac LeMans under an elevated train at nearly 70 miles an hour, while real cars and unsuspecting pedestrians scrambled to get out of the way, and when a civilian's car accidentally pulled in front of him mid-take, Friedkin kept the cameras rolling, calling it fate, and editing it in like it was planned all along. Gene Hackman wasn't even supposed to play Popeye Doyle. Friedkin thought he was too nice, but the actor fought his way into the role and ended up shooting real heroin with narcotics officers to get into character, a method so extreme it made his co-stars nervous. The chase ends with a crash, but what nobody says out loud is that the real crash was happening off-screen every second of that shoot. with crew members hiding behind mailboxes and Friedkin riding in the back seat, screaming into a walkie-talkie because they only had one shot and couldn't afford to miss it.
Frankenstein, you can't call off the race. The American people won't stand for it.
Get out of the way, Junior.
Death Race 2000 turned a dystopian satire into one of the most dangerous and controversial productions of the decade. The film imagined a fascist America where drivers earned points for killing pedestrians, a premise that drew immediate outrage and censorship across Europe, where censors either banned or cut the film for excessive gore and political provocation. Behind the camera, the danger was as real as the violence on screen. David Carradine and Sylvester Stallone performed most of their own driving stunts, hurtling down public roads in cars that were not street legal. Producer Roger Corman even drove in some shots because professional stunt drivers refused, fearing both arrest and collision. The budget barely reached $1 million, forcing improvised effects. Frankenstein's fang-like grill constantly fell off and had to be glued back before takes, while crashes left cars mangled and patched together overnight for reuse. Director Paul Bartel wanted to lean into comedy, but Corman demanded blood, cutting lighter moments and pushing for more carnage. Peter Fonda turned down the role of Frankenstein, calling the script ridiculous, leaving Carradine to take the part for a share of the profits. Stallone rewrote much of his dialogue, shaping Machine Gun Joe into a snarling menace. Released to condemnation, it became a cult landmark, remembered as much for its reckless filming and censorship battles as for the dystopia it portrayed.
411 in progress at Speedway.
Well, that's Mama calling me. And when Mama calls, I gotta come running.
The hell are you doing, Bob? You know me.
Just hold it right there.
White Line Fever ripped into the trucking industry with a story about corruption, but the real shock came from how it was filmed. Jan Michael Vincent played Carol Joe Hummer, a young trucker who refuses to haul illegal cargo and ends up fighting a syndicate that controls the roads. Vincent insisted on doing much of his own stunt driving, blasting through desert highways at speeds that put both him and the crew in constant danger. Trucks weighing tens of thousands of pounds were slammed into collisions without modern safety rigs, leaving minor injuries and shaken cast members who knew how thin the margin for error was. The climax, where Carol Joe rams his rig straight through a corporate glass tower, was filmed with real trucks and debris, creating an image so destructive that some theaters cut it from release, arguing it glamorized terrorism and corporate violence. Trucking companies publicly complained that the film defamed their trade, while censors debated whether its brutality went too far for mainstream audiences. The combination of dangerous stunt work, controversial subject matter, and its explosive finale made it a flashpoint in the debate over how far American cinema could push realism before it crossed into recklessness.
You don't fancy me?
Oh, yeah, very much.
Then why don't we have some fun?
Vanishing Point begins with a Dodge Challenger, a driver named Kowalski, and a simple goal: get from Denver to San Francisco by Monday without stopping. But the movie doesn't care about the destination, it cares about the asphalt, the speed, and the man behind the wheel who's running from everything except the engine under his feet. Barry Newman plays Kowalski like a ghost wrapped in leather, barely speaking, just driving, while flashbacks and police scanners fill in the blanks of a man who used to be a cop, a veteran, and a racer before it all went sideways. The real stars are the 5 Dodge Challengers used to film the high-speed sequences, each one customized and punished across miles of desert highways where stuntmen did donuts around police barricades and jumped riverbeds without roll cages because the budget said no and the director said do it anyway. The film cuts between desert stillness and mechanical violence so fast it feels like it's trying to outrun meaning itself, with a blind radio DJ named Super Soul egging Kowalski on like some holy announcer for a race that no one ever wins. The final scene, where the car meets a bulldozer head-on, wasn't softened by slow motion or trick angles. It was raw impact, shot once from the front, and it hit just as hard. Duel is the kind of movie that proves less really can be terrifying. A man in a red Plymouth is chased by a hulking faceless truck across the California desert for reasons that never get explained, and somehow that lack of motive makes it worse. The story plays out like a waking nightmare, one long, escalating chase where logic doesn't matter and the only rule is survival. It was directed by a 24-year-old Steven Spielberg with a budget of $400,000 and a deadline of 10 days. He got it extended to 13. Dennis Weaver, the actor behind the wheel, did most of his own stunts, including a phone booth scene where a real truck nearly smashed into him. Spielberg shot on real highways with live traffic, mounted 6 cameras on cars, and planned every sequence out on a giant mural he drew on his motel wall. He even auditioned trucks like they were actors before landing on the Peterbilt with the split windshield and oil-streaked grille. The studio wanted the truck to explode at the end. Spielberg said no, he wanted it to die slow. That was his call. That's the moment people remember. That's the kind of fight you pick when you know exactly what the movie should feel like.
Martin, do you read me? This is Lyle Wallace.
Well, I guess this is as far as it goes. You better get on out.
Convoy adapts a novelty country song about CB radios into a sprawling tale of rebellion. Chris Christopherson plays Martin Penwall, known on the road as Rubber Duck, who begins with a fight against a corrupt sheriff and unintentionally leads a convoy of truckers across the American Southwest. The line of rigs swells mile after mile, a moving symbol of defiance that confounds law enforcement and captures the fascination of the press. Director Sam Peckinpah, deep in personal battles with addiction, oversaw a chaotic production where hundreds of trucks thundered down real highways with minimal control, creating constant danger even without major accidents. His original cut leaned into surreal satire, including a drunken governor directing the National Guard from a swimming pool, but producers stripped those sequences and dismissed him from the edit, leaving a more conventional action film. The story itself mirrors the uncertainty of the era, with truckers unsure of what their protest means even as they risk everything to keep rolling. Beneath the spectacle of engines and dust, Convoy is less about trucks than about how rebellion becomes theater and how a movement born from anger can transform into something no one fully understands.